I don't think the Matildas can rely on Sam Kerr anymore.
Ellie Carpenter will be the captain of this side.
She's a world-class player who's done world-class things.
She's going to go down as a Matildas legend. I've got no doubt about that. Cooney-Cross is irreplaceable in this team.
She will be this player of the tournament.
Not many players in the world can play that ball. Can we get government interest? Can we get commercial interest on the back of this tournament?
Imagine having a player like that. It's just like the perfect fit. Australian fans can be very excited about what type of football we're going to play.
Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Special bonus episode for everyone. Today, we're going to go through the 2026 Women's Asian Cup and do a preview of the tournament. We're going to look at the overall tournament, what we expect to get out of it, and what we hope to get out of it on the back end of it as well. Joe Montemurro, obviously his first major tournament with the Matildas. We're going to review what he looks like as a coach and his philosophies as well. And then we're going to identify a few of the key players in the Matildas lineup that we're going to analyze as well. So big show mopper, and it's exciting, mate. We're not too far away from the kickoff of this tournament.
Yeah, March 1st, where Australia will host in Perth, very exciting against the Philippines. So yes, it's not too far away, and the team will look forward to being announced very shortly now as we wait to see who the Matildas pick in their squad to take on a tournament that will ask the viewers, is this the pivotal tournament and is this a pivotal moment in women's football in Australia? We're going to host, obviously, our second major tournament for the Matildas. Obviously, we hosted the World Cup and now we're hosting the Asia Cup in probably what will be a bit of a gap in tournament football for the senior women, at least, due to us hosting the World Cup and Asia Cup in 2026. So we asked the question, is this the pivotal moment for women's football? Can we move? Can we gauge on this tournament and really help the game domestically? And we will speak about those really important questions. So I guess the question is, with two new leaders in leadership roles, we will never get a better opportunity hosting the Asia Cup that could define our women's game at every level. So I think this is more than just the Asia Cup for Australian women's football. And I really think that this could define a lot of things. It could resolve the game domestically. We could push into a professional space off this. And that's really our final frontier of the women's game, and secure the sport at home at every level. I really think this is why this tournament is so pivotal. I also want to look at, this is more than just the Asia Cup. It could be life-changing. We've seen England Super League. I'm not aiming to be as great as them, obviously, and we know there's a big gap, but they formed in 2011. But just a sustainable league for us is what we're trying to gauge off this Asia Cup. Now, I know I'm talking bigger picture, but if you think about it, we've hosted the World Cup. We're still where we're at now. We're hosting Asia Cup. This is probably our last chance to really gauge the Australian audience at a high level. Otherwise, we're just looking at a tournament overseas, and we won't be able to gauge the people into stadiums, into the arenas that this Asia Cup will provide. So I'm looking at it from a holistic approach. And I think if we can do that, if we can look at the things that we've missed, we really have missed some opportunities in the past, but the time is now. And the compelling evidence that the Matildas are the biggest brand and most watched and loved, I think, is really important in this Asia Cup. But it can't be just on that level or one level for the Matildas because they're so highly profiled. It needs to be sustained at all levels. And as we've seen with the men, there is very limited players in the top league for men's football at the moment. There's a lot in the second tiers and in the lower leagues of European football. And we know what happened when we declined 20 years ago without pushing on. And we're trying to spot these sports now, but the women are at their pinnacle. They're where probably the men were 20 years ago, with a lot of players in the Premier League and the Super League and top European clubs. And I think if we don't build that sustainability, or this tournament builds after the sustainability for our youth, I think we'll miss a very big window, and it could take a long time catching up, even if we implement that report that was so well put out. And I'm talking about obviously the PFA report, because I think it's just the perfect time. And I don't want to miss another moment to attract the very thing that drives football, which is the financial and the broadcast and sponsors that give us the long-term sustainability. So I'm looking at this tournament as a pivotal moment for women's sport and football. Do you believe, viewers and yourself, I'd love your opinion on, is this our time? Is this our last opportunity to really push for that professional model at all levels?
I think like never say never, but it is a crucial time and it's a big opportunity to do so. As you mentioned, we've got two new leaders in Martin Kugler in the role of Football Australia CEO, and then Stephen in the role of the APL CEO as well. So not that the APL will be exclusively linked to this tournament, but this is where we've said a number of times where that relationship needs to come into play and they need to work together because Martin mentioned it in his press conference that the A-League is the consistent heartbeat throughout, and these tournaments or these FIFA international windows, they are the little spikes. So in order for the tournament to be successful, of course we want the 20 or so days to be as successful as it possibly can, but on the back of it, that is even more important. We want the Matildas to go on and win the thing, absolutely. But what is more important is what happens on the back of it. Can we get government interest? Can we get commercial interest on the back of this tournament that drives money in to the local game and that we can benefit from so that we can start to produce more and more and more of these young Matildas that come through. And as you said, Mopper, they're not going to these lower leagues. They're going to the top. They're going to the WSL. They may have one stepping stone in Sweden or the WSL2 or in Germany or the likes before they go to the WSL. But the more players that we can get in that top level, and look at the Premier League. I saw an argument on X the other day about how many players are not in the top leagues. And it is true. It's, we love to admire all these men's players that are in the lower leagues and we like to follow their trajectory. But, in order for buy-in from the general Australian public, we need these profiles in the top leagues. And, the WSL is big now. It's only going to get bigger. As it gets more and more competitive, there's going to be more players that want to play at that level. And it's not the only league. We could have players playing in Spain. Italy's a decent league as well. Germany too. France. So we can have players go to all these other leagues. But the important part is that we're producing players in the local A-League women's competition that have the quality, but also we give them the opportunity to grow in the A-League women's competition to a point where they're ready to go and they're not going too early just because we can't offer the wages. So I completely agree with you that the PFA report around going fully professional, this is the chance that they can see the public interest in the women's game and in the Matildas, and we can build on the back of it. We can start, as I mentioned, the APL should be integrated into every effort we have to market this product and to benefit from it. I know there'll be restrictions around the AFC and what we can do around stadium venues, but having a presence there from, if we're in Sydney, those clubs should have a presence somewhere around there to try to engage the fans, try to let them know that these players were at your local club not that long ago and now they're playing on this big stage. So I think, look, not to say that this is the very last opportunity, but it is a massive opportunity to grow the women's game in this country.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sentiment to your points. Let's look at the tournament itself, 3 groups. So if you look at 2022 Asia Cup, it was the first time that Asia women's in the Asia Cup went from 8 teams to 12, and that is sustained through 2026, where the top 2 will go through, and there's 2 third place best finishers will obviously meet in the quarterfinals. If we look at the tournament itself, where we finished last time, 2022, our nemesis, where we lost 1-0 in the 86th minute to South Korea, we'll be looking to turn. We've actually got South Korea in our group, but we open against the Philippines in Perth. We then go to the Gold Coast and host Iran before going to Sydney to host a big last group game, obviously against South Korea. Hopefully they'll set us on the path to the quarterfinals, semi-finals and final. We look like if the draw goes the way we think it will, that Japan will be our semi-final opponents, and probably the other toughest team in the tournament is no doubt Korea DPR, who are ranked 9th, seeded 2nd. Japan's obviously seeded 1st in Asia, and they're ranked 8th in the world. So we've got 2 very competitive teams, but Asia gap isn't as close, I don't think, between all teams. There's still a little bit of a gap. So hopefully we won't, hopefully we will, and hopefully we won't, for the fans' perspective, see some of the blowouts that we've seen 18-0. I think we beat Indonesia, I think, last time in 2022. So I think it'll be a lot tighter, but I still think the gap is still quite a bit in Asia's women's football. I think you've got the top teams and you've got the bottom. It's a little bit of a gap there. So this tournament definitely offers some opportunity for women's football, and I hear your sentiments and love to hear your fans' reaction in regards to where do you think this tournament is at a moment where we should be looking at winning? Absolutely. And what can we gauge from that? Because I think the tournament itself, I've got some great host cities. I think no doubt the Matildas will sell out. And I think you're going to have a real huge fan base. Like you've seen, the World Cup numbers were massive. And I think you'll see the reflection of all the Matildas' work in the last 4 years come true. And I think this is our best time to host a tournament. I think we've got a great team and a great philosophy going forward.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I just wanted to touch on your point, and we will speak specifically about some players later, but just how different that 2022 squad was when we got knocked out by South Korea. And, the likes of Claire Polkinghorne, Lydia Williams, Kyra Simon, lots of names that haven't really been around the Matilda squad for quite some time. So while for some, and this tournament and the World Cup next year will be their last opportunity to probably do their thing on a big stage, but it really does show a bit of the changing of the guard. And we will speak about some of those players specifically as well.
Absolutely. All right. Next one we want to look at, Chief. What do we got? What's next?
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on Joe Montemurro because he hasn't been in the position all that long. He's had limited time with the Matildas, but he really is going to bring a different style to what Tom Samani did as well, and as well as Tony Gustafsson. So it's going to take time, well, it has taken a bit of time, I think, for some of the Matildas players to get used to it. But I think in terms of the public and what they're going to get behind, I think it's really, really exciting. I think, it's a Dutch term, but this idea of total football. And, have we signed our Australian Pep Guardiola? I mean, he likes to kind of change things around, and it's all about possession-based football and, that beautiful style. And I think some of the players are going to have to adapt to it, and other players maybe won't be able to adapt to it. And we're going to see some players that haven't been used in the past that can come in and do a job in this style that Joe wants to play. He's won 3 different league titles with 3 different European teams, prioritizes a possession-based football, likes to control the games, building from the back. And we saw it even in those first couple of games where some of those fringe Matildas were in. It wasn't our full squad, but just how, we were turning the ball over a little bit in that final third. But I don't think Joe necessarily would have been that concerned about it. Making mistakes here, even for the players who are on the fringe, get used to this style, get used to playing it, and you'll be okay. So the movement's definitely a key to this style. It suits the Matildas down to the ground. Flexibility of the side allows Catley, Cooney-Cross, Carpenter to find space in those little pockets, which is definitely a strength in their game. And having, he's been doing it for club football for multiple years. And I think we've spoken at length on the podcast about the fact that the centre backs, it was the combination of Kennedy and Claire Hunt in the past World Cup, and they were kind of rock solid there and suited Tony Gustafsson's system. But there's every chance that neither of those players are going to play at centre back, and it just shows how different the style is. But what's something that excites you about what Joe Montemurro has brought to the Matildas?
I think it's the flexibility in his formation and his philosophy. He's got a clear identity. And I think we got lost there, didn't we, in a little bit of wilderness probably after the World Cup and even probably before the World Cup in the Asia Cup last time. It wasn't an overall good performance. And the World Cup then brought us to life at home, which the home crowd really pushed us through. But I think tactically, Gustafsson just fell a little bit short. I couldn't work out his identity as much as what I can with Joe's. And credit goes to Tom too, because he took over at a very difficult time. We just got our worst performance at the Olympics. We got knocked out, and it seemed like the Matildas were questioning, are we at the end of our peak? But Tom's really rejuvenated the youth. He's really dived and deep into our systems and where the younger players were, and he's exposed a lot that we actually see today. Amy Sayer, Cooney-Cross was there in the last Asia Cup and World Cup. We started to see that development, but he's really had to guide them through. And I think we've exposed a lot of younger players in the last couple of years. And then you add the quality of the coach, like you said, 3 different leagues. He is an outstanding football manager within the women's game. He has a high credential coaching IQ. And I think when you put his philosophy with the Matildas, it's just, to me, not just total football, but it's just like the perfect fit, because we want to see the strengths of the Matildas. And you want to see Carpenter find those areas that Joe talks about in these unconventional spaces where she has opportunity to penetrate behind the lines consistently, not just those direct runs down the right, moving around diagonally in and out. And I think that's what Joe offers. And talking about players ending up in different spaces, and if you can get that complement working, we've seen Cooney-Cross, she normally picks up a 6, but she's allowed the flexibility to move into an 8 or pop into a 10. She'll shoot from outside the box. The flexibility of this formation really suits the likes of those players. Even Caitlin Ford, the flexibility to, she was a false 9 against New Zealand. Then she come out wide in the other game. So again, the flexibility that she thrives on as well. And it's kind of the brand of football that I think we've been crying out for, that is, to me, the most perfect opportunity and the perfect fit to play this philosophy and identity. And I'm really excited to see it really unearth itself. We've seen 12 months of testing and trying, and I think we're really going to watch it evolve, which is going to be really exciting for the Australian public.
Absolutely, mate. And I think the clear example for me in terms of that flexible football is when Steph Catley was playing that left centre back, and there was a period of the game, at least for a couple of minutes, where she was just occupying almost like a centre forward or a second striker role. So, and we know how good Steph's ball playing ability is. So, yeah, her capacity to be able to pop up in that spot. But, part of that total football is the fact that you can have your defenders pop forward, but also then the DMs or other players realize that, they may need to cover back in the space. But, as an opposition, how tricky is it to know, if there's this constant movement, it's pretty tricky to pick up. I think the challenge for Australia, I don't see them having any issue playing this style through the group stage and potentially even the quarterfinal. It's when, it would be pretty shocking in terms of results if it's not an Australia versus Japan semi-final on that side of the draw. But that's the challenge. How does that football hold up against the quality of a Japan? And that's going to be the real challenge for Joe Montemurro. And that's going to be where he's going to be critiqued as well, because while we might like to watch pretty football, it is about results at the end of the day as well. So that's going to be Joe's challenge, whether he can embed his philosophy even further with these players and make sure that they're winning that semi-final and then pushing on to the final, where we hope that they play a similar style as well.
Yeah, and I think in the past you would have thought Japan would have thought, yep, they're going to control the ball like England did against the semi-final. But Joe's going to want that control against no matter who he plays. And I think that's the positive. And yeah, you're right. It is a results business, but results to him is trying to maintain possession and control. And that's the best attack and that's the best defense for him. So it's going to be really interesting to see his philosophy at the highest level. But again, the credential and the facts show us prior that he's got these teams to winning leagues in competitions in high around the world. So yeah, it's very exciting. I think Australian fans can be very excited about what type of football we're going to play and really get on the front foot and express ourselves. I think that's the biggest thing with the Matildas that, that I wanted to see, that just the way they played against New Zealand. I know credentialed New Zealand at the previous World Cup, but the ability to express ourselves and play our game is what I think everyone, and at home, is what people are going to be really excited about. So, and I think if we can get this total football working, and like you said, the best opportunity to probably win the Asia Cup, yeah, we've definitely got every corner covered, haven't we? So it's just going to be up to the execution on the day, like you said. We're going to look at players now, and we're going to look at Mary Fowler. Is the Matilda the X factor, and why? So we're going to look at Mary Fowler's just returned, featuring after a 294-day layoff. Mary returned for Man City with just under a month before the Asia Cup. So why Fowler return gives the Matildas the X factor? Well, this young lady debuted at 15. She turns 23 this Valentine's Day, Chief, on the 14th of February. But already in her career, that's 8 years. An incredible career at such a young age. She has been at 2 Olympics, 2 World Cups, and previous Asia Cup as well. This will be her second. Mary was recognised and voted by PFA a record 3rd time this year as a Young Women's Football of the Year. And then Mary's stats says it all. Capped 63 times at only 23. 16 goals, scoring at the Olympics, World Cup, against teams like Brazil, Great Britain, France and Sweden, to name a few. Mary Fowler is the Matilda's X factor because she has the ability to create and move the ball and the world-class link in transition. And the biggest X factor for me is playing in a system that will help the team flourish with the ball. Now, we know she's returning from injury, so we know we're going to be cushioning her through these first 3 games. But imagine having a player like that, maybe for a cameo, or maybe in the final or semi-final, in a key moment. You're looking for one thing, one moment that a player can provide. And you've got your X factor, Mary Fowler, who's done it all at only 23. Is this the unearthing of Mary Fowler's biggest contribution to the Matildas at only 23? Is she the X factor?
Absolutely, she's the X factor. And I think she is that because of injury return. And I can see a scenario where she might build into the tournament, first couple of games, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But you can imagine bringing her on for the second half or for the last 30 minutes, say it is against Japan in the semi-final. And that's the last thing they're going to want to see. They're going to want to see Mary Fowler fresh as players are starting to fatigue, with the ability to pick a pass, with the ability to dribble one-on-one, with the ability to hit the ball with both feet from outside the box and put it in the top corner. She's an absolute superstar. And I think I'd be very interested to know how Joe intends on using her, because we've seen her used in so many different ways by past Matildas coaches. Joe even said, as Mary was making her return from injury, he knows exactly where he wants to put her. So I'm fascinated as to where Joe is going to put Mary Fowler in this team. I don't think she'll get many starts, if any, in this tournament, but the ability for her to come on in second halves and change the game, if we're trying to come from a deficit, or if we're trying to put that ceiling goal on, all you need to do is cast your mind back to that absolute cracking ball that she played for Caitlin Ford in last World Cup. And, not many players in the world can play that ball, to be able to pick the ball up and then just slide it through what was about a 50-meter pass and Ford just had to run onto it. Did she even take a touch? Maybe one, and then she's put it away. Like that's the thing. Like even if say we're under the pump, which we hope not to be, but she has the ability to pick that ball up and get us forward very quickly. And she is the type of player, I don't think we have a lot of these players, that if there is a low block, she can find that inch of space and pick a pass or score a goal. So I think she's going to be absolutely crucial to the success of the Matildas in this Asian Cup.
Absolutely agree with your thoughts on that one. I think every Australian Matilda fan is going to be very excited to see Mary Fowler back in action. I know Man City are doing a little bit of rest and recovery after her first initial one, but that's a lot of rumours around why she was absent. But that Man City quoted that, they wanted to rest and they've got to take their time. So I'm sure Joe will do the same, but we know what type of player we have on our plate. Look at Joe's philosophy and reaction when asked a question. It was just gold. And I think she's in a very happy space at the moment. I watched the video on Stan Sport, that interview that they did, and you could just see how relaxed, how excited, how good she feels about herself and her football right now. And I think that'll just go through the group, and the group will know that the X Factor is back fit, and they know she won't be at a peak of her powers, but they'll know if they need that one moment that she can definitely produce. I think that pass you're talking about was against Denmark, where Caitlin Ford scored. That's the kind of moments that she creates. And yes, we haven't seen her play much football last year, but I don't think a player like that's going to lose too much. And I think they don't lose the vision and creativity that she provides. It's in her natural sense and her natural football game. So it's an exciting time ahead for Mary Fowler fans and the Matildas, because you're going to have one hell of an X factor, either coming off the bench or playing little cameo roles to help Matildas get all the way.
And I think the fact that through ACL recovery, obviously she's got a very public relationship with Nathan Cleary, and that seems to be keeping her very happy. I know that you're a big fashion guy, Mopper, so you'll know this, but maybe no one else does. But Mary walked down the catwalk, Paris Fashion Week. So she's got these other things happening in her life outside of football as well. And I think it's a nice, really well-rounded lifestyle that she can have. And, it's not just about her football. And I think she, as much as this ACL injury would have been completely devastating for her, sometimes I think it kind of makes players appreciate what they've got, but also gives them things outside of football where it's not just the day in, day out routine of what they're doing. So I expect her to come back with a massive bang, and I just can't wait to see her back on the field. Where do you think Joe Montemurro has in his mind of playing her, or does it even matter with his philosophy? Because she might be positionally in the 10, but doesn't mean she's not going to pop up on a wing or in the 9 or even deeper to pick up the ball. What do you think?
I've got no doubt it'll be the 10 and just getting into different pockets of space and then trying to link up with Cooney-Cross and Gorry in the midfield. I've got no doubt she'll try to help transition the ball. The good thing about Joe is what probably Joe will want as well is for her to drop back, not too far, but just into that middle so Cooney-Cross and Gorry can cover the back four just to pick up and transition that next ball to the forwards. I think you'll see a lot of that. She's got the ability to pick the pass. Joe's looking at that 10 spot, no doubt. And he'll know she won't start there, but definitely for penetration and for retention of the ball, she'll be in that little pocket. Even if we're up or down, I still think no matter what the situation, she'll be in that 10 and avoided probably the freedom to try to create that and make it her own.
Okay, Mopper, let's talk about Kyra Cooney-Cross. She is my favourite in the Matildas at the moment, turning 24 just before the tournament kicks off. She's been part of the Matildas setup since 2021, making her debut versus Denmark. She has played in some major tournaments before with 2 Olympic campaigns, an Asian Cup in 2022, and of course, the World Cup. In all of those tournaments, she was a bit of a cog in the machine. And even as good as she was for the Matildas at the World Cup, I feel like she was always spoken about as being part of that combination with Katrina Gorry, that kind of big sister, little sister kind of combination. So this season, we've seen a bit of a change with her time at Arsenal. She actually got some decent game time last season as well. But I think there seems to be a bit of a changing of the guard at Arsenal as well. And I've mentioned this before as well. It seems like Kyra's got this bit of a steal to her now. She's kind of, not that she'll ever lose that larrikin side, and we hope she never does, but I think she's really determined to lock down her spot in the Arsenal team and to make a big difference with the Matildas. Steph Catley even mentioned that in the last camp when she was questioned on, if Cooney-Cross should make a move away because she's not getting game time. But she reinforced the fact that in that Arsenal environment, week in, week out, day in, day out, she is getting challenged and she is going up against world-class players to fight for starting positions in that Arsenal team. So I think she's in a very good environment. So this season, she has seen an increase in game time for Arsenal. After a bit of a slow start, plenty of calls for her to get more game time at the start of the season. She just went on a run of 7 starts in a row before coming home to see her mum, who unfortunately is sick. And she also has played in and started more Champions League games this season than she did all of last season. Of course, Arsenal looking to defend that Champions League crown. But here's what I want to talk about, Mokpa. I think Kyra Cooney-Cross is irreplaceable in this team. I don't think anyone can do what she does for this team. For me, she'd be the first name on the team sheet. She owns that midfield. She is so good in there, and I think she's going to suit Joe's style down to the ground. Her set pieces are unbelievable. Her delivery from corners, and we've seen that even in her time in the old W League, and also her ability to play a ball from a free kick are absolutely incredible. We've seen the shots from literally anywhere basically inside her attacking half. She is willing to have a crack, and so pleased with her that some of those goals have gone in because she's gone so close before. But yeah, keepers and defenders, be aware. If you give Kyra Cooney-Cross too much space in that attacking half, she's going to tear you apart. Her passing range is incredible. We spoke about Mary Fowler before, but I think Cooney-Cross is potentially even better. The way that she can spray the ball out wide, she can pass through the lines, and then even in those little intricate spaces around the box, she can do that too. Her ability to carry the ball, this is a big benefit, I think, for Joe Montemurro, where she can pick it up on the half turn and drive the ball forward, whether that's her moving the ball forward herself or playing that early ball out wide or into the striker's feet. Second to none for me. Her ability to retain possession is fantastic as well. And the thing about it is it's not just retaining possession and recycling it back through the defenders or the keeper. It's retaining it, but always with the thought in the back of her mind of playing the ball forward. So she picks the ball up on the half turn. If she can't go one way, she'll go the other way. But she very rarely gets the ball taken off her, and she's always looking to get the ball forward, which is exciting for those players that play in front of her. And probably a key for Joe Montemurro's system is her ability to link that front and the back expertly. So we're hoping that we're going to get some ball-playing centre-backs in this Matildas squad and definitely in the starting team. And that's where I think Cooney-Cross is going to have a huge she's going to have a huge advantage if she's playing that 6 to be able to pick that ball up and play that next pass. But even if she's a bit higher up the field, her starting position and the centre-backs can find her in those little pockets of space, and then again, her ability to turn and press forward. Well, I think personally at 24 years age, this could be the first of many huge tournaments for Kyra Cooney-Cross.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you've covered it so well. And I'll add just some small 3 valid reasons and points from my own perspective. And I think the biggest asset that Cooney-Cross has and the Matildas is that combination, and that combination's been together for a while, which is Catley, Ford, and Cooney-Cross. She's really learnt off Ford. She's really learnt off Catley. I thought they've been great leaders for her. And that combination of that 3 is just a massive asset for Matildas. And I think they're important for Cooney-Cross's development. I don't think she would have got as far without those two if they weren't at that club. They've been massive role models for her and has helped her become more professional and just grow in confidence and really lead through this one. The second one is, well, I think you've seen in the last 12 to 18 months, Cooney-Cross has had to take on a major responsibility for the Matildas. There has been very limited time for Mary Fowler. She's been out for such a long time, and Kerr. So she's had to take and bear that responsibility on as a young footballer in that midfield. I think it's been a big opportunity in that midfield around her, but I think collectively, what it's done with Fowler's and Kerr's absence over the last 18 months and 12 months, over periods of time, it has made her step up. And it is just taken her game to another level. We're seeing leadership qualities. We're seeing a really mature footballer with a really good football brain, but really good off it as well. And I think that absence of those two senior players has forced her and made her to step up even faster, which I think will benefit her game. Well, we've already seen that, aren't we? We're how much she's benefited and from her counterparts. And the third point is this is going to be a very emotional tournament for her. Her family at home performing with such a drastic and tragic disease that her mum has, with her whole family there and her whole family behind her on her home soil. This is going to be hugely emotional. And I think you're going to see all the qualities of Cooney-Cross come out and how important it is for family, football, and the Matildas to come all together in what is such a unique position to be in, isn't it? Like to have that group grow together that, like Mary Fowler said, it's not just about football, it's about that other side as well that makes you as a person, but makes you a better footballer and a better character for those who are all those young, uprising Matildas that are looking up to you. What a role model this young lady is going to be. And no doubt, I've got no doubt whatsoever. I said a couple of months ago that she will be this player of the tournament. I've got no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely well said, mate. And yeah, look, no doubt she's going to be having an emotional toll carried out throughout this tournament, but hopefully she can spin that in a positive way and have her family in her heart when she's playing out there. And look, I just can't wait to see her thrive on this stage. When we consider that the World Cup was 3 years ago now, how much more developed is she since that World Cup? And like you mentioned, the players out as well, like throw Katrina Gorry in there as well, who's had her injury concerns, her kind of partner in crime in that midfield. And she's really had to step up. Recently, she's been the one that's been solid in that midfield, and she's had plenty of players that have kind of chopped and changed, whether that's Heatley or Sayer or Wheeler, plenty of players that have gone around her, but she's been the one that's been solid in there. And she is going to boss this midfield group for many, many years to come. And look, at 24, she's got plenty of football in front of her, and she's going to go down as a Matildas legend. I've got no doubt about that.
All right, let's look at our all-time leading goal scorer, Sam Kerr, with 69 international goals. Have we finally got the right game plan and this generation and style of play not to rely on Sam Kerr and play total football that will complement her game? In the past and looking back at previous teams, there was a huge reliance, and her stature and achievements brought the media and all the additional pressure of being a superstar and a game plan that relied on her. But I feel in the last 4 years, and especially in Joe and Tom's reign in the last 2 years, there's been a major shift in our football and style of play that brings others into the game. And I think Kerr's absence, the confidence that adds now, the value to Kerr's games rather than rely on it. I think we're seeing the return of the Matildas, but I don't think the Matildas can rely on Sam Kerr anymore, but I don't think they necessarily need to either. And I think if you look at Sam Kerr's stats, she's only played 21 games for Chelsea in the 23-24, 24-25 and 25-26 season. So we haven't seen much football from Sam. But I think this game plan that Joe has will not only complement Sam, but add just such great football and creativity. And I think the bonus will be for Sam. She's in a great space as well. Recently married, settled, got a beautiful child. And I think this moment is all about more about what we can do in achievement rather than the additional pressures that were way put on in the past. All they talked about when she was out with that injury in the World Cup and how desperate we were for her, but others rose, and I think she thrived off that. And I think now we can finally compliment Sam Kerr, not only just in game style, but just not having to rely on her, but knowing that she's there to help us and support us and finish those great goals that she does. So I think the Matildas can't rely on Sam Kerr. I don't think they need to now, but she'll be a massive asset and complement for our team. And this is where total football comes into it. And I think she'll fit into that system beautifully and play with more freedom and play a style of football that I think will even take her further to heights. Now let's look back at 2022. She was the golden boot of the Asia Cup. She scored 7 goals. But I think we're dealing with a different Sam Kerr, and I think we're dealing with a different football team. And I guarantee that Sam Kerr will enjoy her football much more than in the previous past, because I think she'll feel, integrated in this side, but feel like she's just one of the girls that she can contribute and make a difference and play that leadership role now as she gets to that age now where she can offer the values and offer her learnings to the younger players that are coming through. And I think this is a massive asset for the Matildas football team.
What a big
What are your thoughts?
What a big difference 3 years makes, mate, because as you said, when it was announced that our first game against Ireland, when Sam Kerr wasn't in the starting lineup and wasn't in the matchday squad, I think panic went through the entire country about how our tournament was going to roll out without Sam Kerr. And even in that tournament, if you remember, I don't think we necessarily had a second striker. I think we played like Fowler as a false 9, potentially forward, Van Egmond. We didn't really have a backup solution. And now you look at 3 years on, we've seen Michelle Heyman plug a lot of that hole when Sam Kerr was out. She's definitely a viable option, even though she's getting on a little bit, out in football terms anyway. And when you've seen the emergence of Holly McNamara as well, like coming through that line, and there's options now. So I think even if Kerr isn't at it in a game, there's options to change things up. Even if she needs to be rested for part of a game, there are options for Joe Montemurro. And I think you're 100% right in terms of, I don't think the Matildas need to rely on Sam Kerr anymore. Of course, we want her goals. She's still quality in the air. She's still quality running in behind defenders. She still has that ability to do that. But the goals can come from elsewhere. We've seen Caitlin Ford chip in. We've seen Razzo chip in. We've seen Van Egmond, Cooney-Cross chip in. We've even seen Carpenter chip in at times. So I don't think the goals necessarily, I don't think we're going to see a prolific Sam Kerr in this tournament in terms of the leading goal scorer. I think it's really going to be a shared responsibility amongst all of the Matildas. And I just think that we're past reliance on Sam Kerr. And as you said, I think that Sam herself will enjoy that weight being off her shoulders. Definitely for the football public, I think they'll realize that there's other options. Potentially for the general public, they'll jump on the Sam Kerr bandwagon and put all their kind of energy and efforts into that. But I think in terms of progression through the tournament, if we were to rely solely on Sam Kerr, I think that would be a huge mistake. But I don't think that's where Joe's head's going. Like he has had her in camp, but he hasn't seen a lot of her play, and he's been able to unearth these other options in the squad. And I think that that's the opportunity going forward. And let's not forget that this is the first tournament of 2 major tournaments in the space of 2 years. So again, going to the World Cup in 2027, we don't want to be relying completely on Sam Kerr. Let's not forget, she started playing professional football at a very young age. So not only is it her age, but it's her football age in terms of minutes in the legs. And you can see some of these injuries popping up over the last couple of years. So, yeah, I think for Sam Kerr, it'll be an interesting tournament. And I hope for her personally that, we can go on and win this tournament because she has been such an integral part of the Matildas for so many years. She might not play the biggest part if we go on to win it, but I still think she's going to be crucial to what we do.
Absolutely. And what a role model that we have here for the Matildas and all the girls' football players and women that we have that don't not even play football. She's a role model. But I think she's at her happiest, Chief. I really do. And I think she's in a much better place. She feels she's gotten over her injuries. She hasn't played fully for Chelsea. She's been bit part, but I think that's all in relation to her recovery and making sure they protect her for as long as they can because she's such a valuable player. So I'm not concerned about the minutes because I think she's contributed to Chelsea as well. She's still that prolific player and she will be important, but important part of everyone else. And I think that philosophy that Joe brings in total football will not only assist, but allow different movement in that front line that allows Sam Kerr to flourish. And I think it'll give her more opportunity, whether we're direct or indirect, or whether we're wide, or we're cutting in 1-2s, or just taking those first moments. I think we've got a lot of variety, and I think that's really important. If you want to win a tournament, you've got to have that total football package, and you've got to have everyone contributing to that, because I think that philosophy will suit us much more down to the ground. And I think these girls are in a great space, and Sam Kerr's in a great space to perform in that.
All right, Mopper, let's talk about Ellie Carpenter. Ellie made a step up in her career in the off-season, moving from Lyon in France to Chelsea in southwest London. It was an interesting decision given that Chelsea already had a world-class right back in Lucy Bronze, and we spoke at length about this, mate, when that move happened. And we thought, ooh, this is interesting for Ellie. Is she going to be fighting it out with Lucy Bronze, or is this a bit of a contingency plan and a bit of a changeover at Chelsea? So there was a chance that Ellie might have to bide her time, but as with most things in Ellie's career, she tackled the challenge head on and has got to where she wants to be ahead of schedule. Surprise, surprise. She's played 14 of Chelsea's 15 WSL games this season, starting 13 of those. She's even been deployed further forward, mate, at times with Bronze still in the starting lineup, playing at right back, but Ellie playing more of a right winger, showing her versatility. Carpenter's engine and speed have always been a feature, but now under Joe Montemurro, who she played under at Lyon, she'll give even more license to get forward and even have her starting position further up the pitch. She has won countless domestic trophies and individual honours, both here in the A-League and also overseas as well. But I think this is going to be Ellie's tournament when she lifts this particular Matildas group to their first major trophy on home soil when they lift the Asian Cup. In my belief, mate, Ellie Carpenter will be the captain of this side in the near future. She is the heartbeat and she embodies what it is to be a Matilda. At 25, can you believe she's only 25? She feels like she's been around forever. She has the benefit of 10 years of football experience behind her and another 10 years in front of her when she can lead this team to glory. I think that captain's armband, once Kerr hangs him up, or even once Catley hangs him up, that is Ellie Carpenter's for sure. I just think that she is such a good leader. She speaks so well about off-field issues. She is so passionate and driven on the field. She is the ideal captain for me. How do you think Ellie's going to go in this tournament, mate?
I think she's primed for a big one, and I think we're very lucky that she made the move to Chelsea, because I think what's most important when she's playing for Chelsea is they play three centre-backs, which allows her to push forward in the freedom. A little bit different with a back four, but we've seen like Joe adopt that, probably similar to Liverpool, where they just let the right back roll into the midfield. But the added advantage of Ellie is she not only can be deployed in midfield, she can push further up the pitch, which we've seen. And I think that Gorry dropping in, which we've seen a lot of, Cooney-Cross sometimes, more so Gorry, and even Heatley in there sometimes when she's played in the six, and Kennedy protecting that space in behind to allow Ellie to express herself. There's no doubt that the Matildas are better off when she's expressing herself further forward of the pitch, and Chelsea's just taken advantage of that and seen that. Yeah, we were concerned, but again, when you look at the quality of Carpenter, she's a world-class player who's done world-class things, and she's a world-class club. And I think that's what's the most exciting thing, that challenge that you said she had with Lucy Bronze. It's just another phase in her football growth, isn't it? And you're damn right about captains. There's probably could be a lot of debate around that because we've got so many quality leaders of women's football, haven't we? In the Matildas side, it's just so fantastic to have. But you're right. The role model, the player herself, setting the example on and off the pitch, is just world class, and it's going to be very exciting that Ellie Carpenter plays again. We talk about this total football and system with all of these players, how it's going to benefit them, and I think that's the whole purpose of getting Joe into this Matilda side, and we're very lucky to have him to allow that to come to fruition, because I think this is going to be the perfect moment for the Matildas to express themselves on the pitch, and we've already seen them do it off the pitch. They do it so well, hence why they're so well followed. But I think you're going to see this now go through this tournament, expressing themselves in a football sense with their own identity and with the coach driving that identity. And I don't think we've had that for a long time.
I'm sorry, were you referencing Liverpool as into something that we should replicate? Have you seen their form this season?
No, I was more referring to when they had Trent Alexander-Arnold in there and they allowed him to be deployed into the midfield, then further forward was my example. As you know, yes, I am a Liverpool fan from a very young age at heart, but it was more in reference to their tactics, not referring to where Liverpool's position is, which could be another show at another time.
Yeah, living in the past, man. Maybe stay there and don't look at their current form. But let's talk about Ellie. What I really love about her, obviously her engine, her work rate to get up and back, her absolute speed. But I think you're right in terms of your point around where she goes now, because for so often we've seen her getting around her right winger to support around that way. But now when she's picking up the ball in those pockets, I think she's just as dangerous, and it gives the opposition defenders an absolute nightmare to think about whether she's going around the outside and going to burn you with speed or coming inside, a bit of trickery. And how many times have we seen with Chelsea, even with her playing at that right wing back, but getting into those goal scoring opportunities. There was a game a couple months back, can't remember their opponent, but she scored one. She probably could have scored two or three. But I think even and it's been mainly Hayley Raso playing on that right. And Raso tends to like to, if she can't take on a defender one-on-one straight away, she tends to like to cut inside, which is a balancing for the Matildas that they've got to work on as well. But, I think Raso coming inside just allows even more space for Ellie Carpenter to bomb around the outside. So I think they just need to make sure they get that combination right, because if Carpenter's filling up that space inside, what does Raso do? And then, they don't want to both be going there, because then that's crowding the 10 and the 9 as well. So I think just that working out that combination. But we've seen, the inverted fullbacks and even, probably like an Ange Spurs kind of style where they're almost like inverted, but they're also really high up the field as well. So I think, that's going to be the key. And just that defensive cover, as you mentioned, making sure that whoever's in that six is aware that they need to get there. And maybe sometimes in that case, a more defensive-minded Winnie Heatley or Alana Kennedy might be the perfect complement to someone like Carpenter.
Yeah, definitely. And even Wheeler, they've both done the job there. You've Cooney-Cross and Gorry started in one New Zealand game and Kennedy and Wheeler in the other. So, and Heatley played with Catley and Catley played with Hunt. So, yeah, they've got isn't it great to see so much depth? And I think Ellie Carpenter, like you said, the timing of the runs, well, this is Joe's number one strength, isn't it? Where to be and preoccupy the space and around it. So I think no doubt they'll work on that. And they've had 12 months of time, but not only 12 months with Joe. They've been together, like you said, for a while. and I think they'll balance each other out beautifully, no matter who plays down that right hand side. But I've got no doubt that Chelsea's added a few more elements to Ellie's game this year, and I think that's really gained really good momentum with her performances for Chelsea. And I really think you get a better total footballer. I think with Ellie, I think going to Chelsea, I think she's with the players around her. I just feel like she's building her football even more.
Absolutely, mate. Well said. We've got 18 days until the tournament kicks off. So pumped for this tournament. I know that you're traveling around a bit following the Matildas, mate. So you must be absolutely thrilled. I'm going to get to a couple of games as well. So yeah, can't wait for this tournament to kick off. It feels like it's been a long time coming. And yeah, can't wait for the Australian public to get right behind these Matildas and cheer them on to a big Asian Cup win.
Yeah, absolutely. And what better place to do it than at home? And I think you're going to see the best Matildas you've ever seen in entirety. I really do. I think it's just their moment and their time.
Well said, mate. Yeah, look forward to hearing everyone's feedback about what we've spoken about tonight. And what's your prediction for the Matildas in the Asian Cup? We're both backing them in for a win, but what do you think? Are they going to fall short, or are they going to go all the way to glory? Which is, I'm sure, what everyone wants to see.